All right, guys, welcome to How to Talk Effectively to Motivated Sellers, Part 2. In the previous video, we talked about the 5-step call structure, and we're going to go over step 2 here, which is setting expectations. So, when you're talking to the seller on the phone, whether inbound or outbound, what you want to do is you're going to talk a little bit about, hey, this is what you can expect in this call. This will only take about 15 minutes to get some property information, some details about your property. When we come to an agreement on a quick sale, you won't have to fix anything up. I'll buy as is, and you won't have to pay any commissions or closing costs either. And then you move on. This is, again, not something you'd read to them. You just want to loosely set the expectations of how this call is going to go in terms of time, in terms of the kind of questions you're going to ask them and the type of information you're going to need from them. Okay, so one of the things you can mention is assuming you agree to a fair price, when can I see the home? Or assuming we come to an agreement, when would you like to close? And always make sure you position this part as if you're very busy, but you're not too busy for them, right? So look, I have a couple openings this week. When's a good time to meet? Can you do Wednesday at this point? And whether that's you or your acquisitions manager, either way, set it up right. And before we do that, let's spend some time talking about your property, the neighborhood, a little bit about the characteristics of your home. And I should be able to pull some comparables and make you an offer on this call, or perhaps when I get in touch with a realtor. You're welcome to sort of tell them that you're not a realtor and you don't have access to the MLS, right? You're just an investor. You're just like them. You're going to email your realtor and get some comps after the call. And I think it's important to mention too that in the call, some of them will actually continue to want to get that number from you. And I'm going to show you some negotiation techniques here in a moment. So, all right, so building rapport and gathering information. Focus 80% on the conversation with the seller about them, who they are, where they're from, where they're going after this potential sale. Focus 15% on gathering information about the home, like characteristics, the loan information, all about the property, right? So first them, then the property. Focus 5% on you or less. If they're not asking about you, you shouldn't really share much about that. If they have an interest or you feel like there's a lack of trust, then you want to talk about you, what you do, and why there's a need for a process by which homeowners can sell quickly, and why the MLS isn't always the best solution when somebody's home needs a lot of repairs, or somebody's in foreclosure and they have 2 weeks before a sale. And then finally, if you somehow get the contract without knowing that 80%, you did a disservice to the seller and yourself. So if you just somehow, Mr. Rockstar, Mrs. Rockstar, came through this whole conversation and you're able to get a contract but not know the essentials of who they are and why they're selling, something's wrong. You're probably not going to close, right? That seller also, let's be honest, might be unscrupulous. They might be signing a contract with another investor, then signing with you, even though that's not legitimate, right? They're uneducated on the process, and it's your job to bring them up to par about how this all works. And again, you should be doing a great job of finding out what's going on. Leave no stone unturned, because it's going to be a bomb later. Step 4, the soft pass negotiation. This is my favorite part. So you want to be a good negotiator? No, scratch that. You want to be a great negotiator. So some talking points here. Really, that all sounds good. Well, tell me, what did you originally buy it for? How much did you pay for the house back in '82? Okay. It's sort of a preface here. I'm going to get numbers from them so that I don't have to talk about the number. Okay? Now, for some of us, we'll go straight for the throat, and you want to, sort of kill the deal and find that out. But there's sellers out there that want to hear your number first, or vice versa. You want to hear their number first, right? So they can kind of gauge. And by the way, that's a good sign that they're shopping you. Just like auto insurance, they're shopping for the best rate, the best price in this case. So when did you originally buy this property? How much you pay for it? Guys, you're painting a picture. If it was 2 years ago and they paid 180, do you think they're going to sell for 165? No, they don't have enough equity. You can almost know their number without asking their number. But if they bought it in the early 80s for 65, and you go, oh great, did you ever refinance it? Yeah, I refinanced for this amount in 2002. You can see how much they owe, and therefore how much they owe is going to tell you about what they might be wanting for the property. Did you buy this rental as a primary home, or rather this property as a primary home or a rental? Okay, so is the home vacant or occupied? How much do you rent it for, and do you have a copy of the lease, right? All of these things are going to lead up to this negotiation. By the way, if you find that somebody's renting out a property and you get a contract, always, always, always try to get a copy of that lease. Okay? You want to see when that lease, first of all, how much the rent is, and then you want to see how much how much time that lease is set up for. So if it's like a month-to-month lease or an annual contract or whatever. Let me ask you something. Do you know what it would be worth in today's market at all? Or have you had it appraised in the market in the last 12 months during like a refinance or anything? If so, what amount was listed? What amount did you list it for if you put it on the market? Why do you think it didn't sell? All data points. If somebody says to you, before they even tell you their number, I listed it 6 months ago for 180,000. You can expect them not to say, now I'm selling for 300,000 less than a year later. It's just not going to happen. So you'll get those numbers from them by hitting these other data points around them. Do you have a current appraisal? Have you listed it on the market? If you listed it today, what do you think you'd list it for, right? Or what do you think it's worth, right? And then another good one is, if you fixed up your home, fully fixed up, what do you think it'll sell for? What do you think the property be worth? And then you can ask them what they're selling for and clarify what that amount is. Because what that does is that creates a number in their head about what their property's actually worth, so that they can be realistic when they tell you the number. If you don't do any of that, they're just going to highball you, right? The opposite of a low ball. They're going to go on Zillow or talk to a realtor, find out their property's worth 180, and they're going to ask for 200. Because what most people do is they're simply going to account for the closing costs and everything, and they're going to try to net what they believe, wherever that number comes from, what their home is worth. I'm telling you, it happens every single time. Whether they get that number from Zillow or the realtor, they're going to put 5 to 15% above that. And your job is to paint the picture and say, no, you know what, that's not going to work. Now, what's interesting about this is you may or may not have the data before you talk to the seller. Sometimes you don't even have an address. So you may or may not know that. So when you're talking to them and you're trying to talk numbers, you're a little bit in the dark, and you're going to be getting most of these numbers from them. And you can always, lean on the fact that, well, I don't have any comps yet, but I just at least want to know what you're asking for it, so I can, and now that I have information about the property, the neighborhood, I can pull some comps and get back to you here within the next hour or whatever, whenever you're available. All right. So if I paid all cash, paid all closing costs, settlement fees, and we were able to close next Wednesday at Pioneer Title, what would you sell it for? And or just would you sell it for what you owe? If they believe that they owe what it's worth, they know they're not putting on the MLS because they can't afford commissions. Hey, you know what? Let's take over payments. Would you sell it for what it's worth, or a couple grand, so you can go get another couple grand over the balance? You can go get another property or rental. All right. Next one is how much would you like to sell your home for? That's a little more direct. And if they say, I don't know, just seeing what offer would be out there, or I'm just kind of testing the market, see what I can sound. Rather, see what I can get. Don't be afraid to say something a little off the wall too. I mean, you really gotta. You can't create a win-win or great situation for both parties by being comfortable. When you're too comfortable, it's not going to do well. It's gonna create more of a consultation where they just literally find out what their home's worth and they say thank you and they hang up, right? So you got to kind of hit them in the gut a little bit about their situation. You want to push those buttons throughout the conversation, right? So don't be afraid to kind of joke around. All right, how about $1,000,000? If somebody asks, well, what are you going to give me? How about $1,000,000? Would you say no to that? Ha ha ha. Because you know what? I don't take that question seriously. When somebody says, yeah, what are you going to offer me? Well, I got to get some information about the property. You know, giving you a number is going to be detrimental to both you and I. I have no idea. Let's talk about what the property is. You know, get an idea of the neighborhood, and I can pull some comps and go from there. You know, it's just not a number we come up with from anywhere. It actually is hard data about what's going on in your market. How many properties are listed on the MLS on the market? How long do they sit there, and what do they often go for? Okay. And then after that, it's, well, when do you need to close and how much repairs are needed and whether or not I'll pay closing costs or you'll pay them. So luckily, I make this easy. I pay cash, I close quick. You don't have to worry about anything. It's a net to you price, right? And I'm able to close quickly with cash. So there's no contingencies. You don't have to worry about me backing out of the situation. Whatever price we come to as an agreement, well, that's the price we're going to close at. Okay? So final thing is what amount would be too low? If this is a shaky person, then they're like, oh, I'm not sure, blah, blah, blah. Fine. What would be offensive? What would be too low to you? What amount would you not sell for? Right? What is your house worth today? Pull those numbers out of them so you can use that as some fuel to come up with your number. And then the soft pass happens when you know the house is worth 180 and fully fixed up in your mind, or if you're looking at some comps online while you're talking to them, it's worth 250 ARV, and today's market 180, distressed comps are coming in at 129, 130. You do the soft pass. Hey, how do you feel about all cash 145 to 155? It's well underneath the current market value. It's around what other investors are paying, and that's how you're going to test the waters. That soft pass happens after you get all that other information, right? All right, so continued here. All right, looks like we're actually going to do a third video, guys. So I'm going to finish this up here in the next minute. Wow, really? Can I ask how'd you come up with that number? Pull the carpet out a little bit. Wait a minute. Where'd you come up with that number? Was there another property or listing near you that is listed for that or to sell for that? Okay. If we can't come to an all cash agreement for whatever reason, maybe we can lock it up for what you owe, what the home is worth, right? So create some doubt. Don't be afraid to do that. Create some doubt on their end, not on your end, on their end, so that they can really come to terms with what their situation is. A lot of people live in this sort of la-la land about what their property's worth. It's just, it behooves me every time they tell me a number. I'm like, no, that just doesn't sound right. I always like to say I don't choose how I buy a property, right? The numbers, the local market does the work for me and for you, right? So I can't choose what number I'd like to offer. The market's going to tell me. Everybody's situation is different. Sometimes you just break even. You know, have you considered an owner finance? So if you feel like they're just not budging on numbers, turn the conversation to owner finance, especially if they owe about what it's worth. So those numbers, as you're talking those through, you're doing an analysis in the back of your mind. You're going to tailor your enter strategy and exit strategy. Okay, and that determines your part of. Are you going to do a soft pass for a cash deal? Are you going to do a soft pass for a owner finance, like some type of contract for deed or you know, subject to, or are you going to do a short sale, right? Which are still out there, guys. I'm doing one right now. So finally, down here at the bottom, you know, I wouldn't want to make an offer without solid comparable sales. So let me give my caller a realtor a call here. I'll pull some transactions in the last 90 days. I'll get back to you with a solid number. So sounds like we're at about 140 to 150, right? Okay, so and then also too on the phone, guys, pull out some numbers, specific numbers. Like, hey, I see some sales here at 45,000. Here's one at 55 on 123 Main Street. Flower Avenue sold for 69. So, you know, put out a number that way. You know, if they're asking you for numbers, give them in other words, justify your numbers when they do that. And then always sneak in the Trojan horse after you say the number. Is that about what you owe? How about that for a technique? You can figure out what they owe and what number they're wanting and where they want to be by getting all these data points and using these questions to do so. So let's wrap this up in a third call here, guys, with how to talk to motivated sellers, setting the appointment. See you on the next video.